When Dante traveled to Malay Island to confront the very being responsible for his mother's death, he could never imagine in this very island he was also going to find his lost brother, who had been missing for 10 years. They fight, Virgil loses, supposedly dies in an explosion of demonic energy, and 19 years later, he shows up again in Devil May Cry 5? But how? What explains this return that should have been impossible? Capcom never gave us a definitive answer, so today I'm going to dig into the Devil May Cry universe so we can once and for all solve this mystery. Hello everyone, this is Dante Black EX, your channel for games of hack and slash. And I still remember when that last trailer before DMC5 dropped in 2019. My friends, when this guy appeared for a split second, I confess to you that I screamed. Wait, is that Vergil? It's Virgil! Virgil is back! Because by that point, everyone in the main roster had already appeared in previous trailers. Nero, V, Dante, and it only took 1 second, one single scene, for me to recognize that the blue-coated brother from Devil May Cry 3 was back here in 5. And then it hit me. Wait a minute, isn't Vergil dead? And I have to be honest, I've been playing this game series for 13 years. My first Devil May Cry was the very DMC1, and that game is still my favorite. So when I finished DMC1, one thing was crystal clear: Virgil was dead. That becomes even clearer when you die like 100 times to this son of a bitch trying to get a damn death rank on Dante Must Die. So Virgil's death here isn't just part of the narrative, it is super necessary. Not a maybe, not up to question. His entire body dissolved in an explosion of demonic energy on Malay Island. After that, Dante carried a quiet and sad persona through both the 2007 anime and the entirety of Devil May Cry 2. His mother died in his childhood. His father Sparda went to get milk. Then he died too. And now Virgil had also been eliminated by Dante's own hands. The family story was finished, with Dante being the last one standing. That fact remained true for nearly 20 years. Then Devil May Cry 5 arrived, and Capcom decided to undo that part of the story, the parts that ended Virgil. And even though we expected this to be explained in the game itself, it was not. Later, Capcom released the Visions of V manga, with 5 volumes and 36 chapters, which also didn't explain it. Then came the Virgil DLC in 2020, which we weren't speculating so much about it at the time, believing it would finally show what happened to the character between DMC1 and DMC5, and as you already know, the DLC didn't explain anything either. So the problem remains. Virgil died in 2021, was resurrected in 2019, and nobody told us how. And the truth is, there is no definitive answer, which is exactly why Capcom never gave us one. They left this question open for the player's own interpretation. Well, if that's how it is, then I'm going to take matters in my hands. For that, I studied a bunch of extra Devil May Cry material that isn't present in the games, to even come up with something that made sense. Alright, we already know the main problem. Virgil was canonically dead. And even though for anyone who knew Devil May Cry before DMC5 this is obvious, let me show you why we believed that. See the scene? The guy is literally exploding to smithereens. Not a single piece of him remained, except the amulet that belonged to his mother, which are retextured in gold here for lore consistency. Body, armor, everything completely disintegrated. And to make his death even more definitive, lore-wise he never appeared in any game after DMC1. Just to clarify here, he does return in Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition, but both cutscenes from his campaign take place sometime before Devil May Cry 3. Now, for you to understand how he returned in Devil May Cry 5, think about this. Do you know what happens to a demon after it dies in the Devil May Cry universe? I bet you don't, because the games never really explain these rules. Luckily, we have the Devil May Cry 3 manga, and in there a rather fascinating concept is introduced. While Virgil was raising the Tammany Grove, Archon explains to him that the deadly sins, demons sealed by Sparda, are severely weakened inside the tower because Sparda removed their names. So they are in a state of being almost dead, yet somehow still alive. Virgil is stunned that something like this is even possible. It's absurd. When the first sin is released, it demands that Virgil give him a name to restore its power. Virgil refuses, but grants the demon the ability to name himself, and it chooses the name Pride. What becomes clear from this? A demon cannot be completely eliminated as long as its name still exists in some form. It's an abstract concept, and on its own it doesn't explain everything just yet, because think about it. What about the other demons that were eliminated throughout the games? Why did only Virgil come back? Well, actually, it wasn't only Virgil that came back, but Virgil's case is definitely the most peculiar. To make all of this easier to understand, I can categorize two types of death that happen in Devil May Cry: physical death and conceptual death. Physical would be any of them. Every time someone's physical body is destroyed, has their life taken, that's a physical death. Conceptual death would then be the one that follows the name ruled. The Devil May Cry universe doesn't give us any clues about what happens to humans after they die, but with demons, as long as their name still exists, they can return to the underworld and from the underworld, even without a physical body. A simpler example would be the Scarecrows in Devil May Cry 4. They are creatures possessed by lesser demons that escaped from the underworld through some portal. A more complex example would be the bosses in Devil May Cry. When they die, their soul usually hovers in the air for a few seconds, and in Dante's case he ends up absorbing them and turning them into weapons. But there's a much more interesting case for us: Phantom. This spider is literally the first boss we defeat in the first game. Then, during the gameplay of Devil May Cry 1, if you get captured by Nightmare in Mission 16, you encounter a memory of Phantom, weakening stamina but with the same destructive power as the original. In Devil May Cry 2, he reappears in Mission 14 when a time portal opens. Argosax the Chaos uses him as part of his body, and he shows up again as a nightmare in the Visions of V manga, even refusing to become a familiar for V. The way I understand it, especially because he's such a powerful demon, as long as his name holds power and is somehow invoked by someone or something, he gets to have life in a physical form again. If you want another example, Griffon goes through almost the same process. Eliminated in Devil May Cry 1, you encounter him as a nightmare in Mission 18 of Devil May Cry 1, he's part of Argosax's body in Devil May Cry 2, and V controls him as a familiar in Devil May Cry 5. With Virgil, the rule was almost the same, but there's one key difference, which was precisely the reason he was desperate and on the verge of ceasing to exist at the beginning of Devil May Cry 5. Remember when V says to Trish,
Suffering defeat after defeat, that man's body was reaching its limit.
do you know why he says that? In practice, his body already hit its limit before, I mean, it was literally pulverized. But somehow he got a body back, except, unlike Phantom, who always returns intact, when Virgil came back at the start of Devil May Cry 5, he was completely destroyed. And my analysis is that he was close to conceptual death. And this is purely my interpretation, but because he spent years under Mundus' control, all his memories, pride, desire were stolen from him. he spent quite some time mentally and spiritually drained, now operating with a manufactured personality that wasn't his own. When Dante defeated him at the end of the Devil May Cry 1, he went through a physical defeat, far more intense than what Mundus had put him through, so much that, well, his body exploded. Returning to the underworld, he was no longer under Mundus' control, but spiritually he was completely drained. It's curious that in the scene right after this battle, Mundus says specifically,
Trish, Virgil has been defeated.
as the word says, defeated, not necessarily permanently dead. Especially now that you know about conceptual death, and Mundus also knew about it. I should clarify I'm taking into account the current state of the series. As I made clear earlier, canonically, Vergil had indeed died in the Devil May Cry 1, but in the current context, Vergil had been defeated, returns to the underworld, but was far too weak for Mundus even bother trying to control him again. And besides, at that point, Mundus was focused on getting Dante's attention. The fact is, being a son of Sparta, Virgil held on and over time managed to partially recover, but as we said, eventually even his recovery hit its limit. He entered a state where conceptual death was approaching, because he had his mind drained by Mundus for years. With a weakened mind and no new source of power to fill him, his name were quickly being erased, even for himself, and on top of that, nobody was calling him anymore. I could say that once Dante came out of that melancholic state from Devil May Cry 2 and started smiling again, since he moved on from his brother's death, not even him used the name Virgil in years, thus he continued getting weaker and got very close to stopping existing entirely. Like I said, this naming thing is confusing, but hey, I'm trying to interpret a complex concept into something easy for you. And for me as well, cause I wanted to see this question answered. I like to think that once Vergil sensed this danger, he entered a state of maximum motivation, did everything possible to escape the underworld, and from there, well, you already know what happens when he finally gets out. And one last detail that might reinforce this analysis of mine is a very specific line in the song Bury the Light, the theme of Virgil's DLC, where it said, I am Reclaimer. So, did I do a better job than Capcom filling the gaps they left open? Let me know what you think in the comments. And what else in the Devil May Cry universe have you never found an official explanation for? I'll do my best to answer those as well. Thanks for watching, this was Dante Black EX, and I'll see you on the next video. Until then, jackpot!